Welcome everyone. This is another transition event organized by AFBE, and this one is with the IC, the Institution of Civil Engineers. I should know that. I remember. Today this is being run because the IC have just recently become corporate members with the AFBE, and this is an opportunity for the IC to share some of the services that they offer, tell people a little bit more about IC, and also just to give sort of young people or people who are interested in joining the IC a bit more of information about how to go about it as well.
I think I see that Sean Harris has actually joined us now, so perhaps we'll revert to the original order.
Okay, well, we'll do. Okay, so well, the AFBE is the Association for Black and Minority Ethnic Engineers, and sort of the ethos and purpose of the organization is to promote and allow for more opportunities and the development of Black and minority ethnic engineers and all others inclusively, but focused on Black and minority ethnic engineers getting opportunities in the industry, both at all different stages of your career. So that is sort of post tertiary education, whilst you're in tertiary education, and also transitioning into the world of work. So there's a number of other different areas in which the AFB have set up sort of organizations, events and programs in order to sort of support that. So we have Make Engineering Hot, which is targeted for young people from 12 to 18 to sort of introduce them and encourage them to get involved in STEM subjects and different sort of careers in that direction. We have obviously Transition, which is basically to get people from sort of tertiary education into the formal world of work. We have Real Projects. That's an event which we plan to showcase some of the different engineering sort of feats that are being done within different spheres. We also have Roundtable, which is just an opportunity for professionals to sort of share sort of thoughts and thinking and how they can push forward the AFB's agendas. And then we also have a number of other mentoring and research elements to the organization. Okay, so I'll just do a quick brief introduction, and then I'll pass on to our panel members to give themselves a more sort of full introduction to themselves. We have Sean Harris here, who is the Director of Membership at the IC. We have, I hope I'm saying it right, Eleanor Rinaldi, who's the Academic Partnership Member at the IC. And we also have Mia Errol, who is a Structural Engineering Technician at COE and is currently working towards EngTech accreditation at IC. So I pass the floor to you guys to give yourselves an introduction.
Thank you very much indeed. As Abu said, my name is Sean Harris. I'm the Director of Membership at the Institution of Civil Engineers. I arrived with the IC in 2015, having had a previous career for some 27 years within the engineering world. I'm going to spend hopefully 10 to 15 minutes to try and make up some of this time on giving you an introduction to the institution itself. It's a generic introduction. The specific detail in terms of early career development and how to engage with the IC, I'm going to ask Eleanor to lead on in due course. So in terms of the institution itself, it is the oldest of all professional engineering institutions in the world. It was set up in 2018, and I think for some, the fact that it's so old and venerable might suggest that it's somehow not progressive and modern. Nothing could be further from the truth. That's the Charter objectives. And it's basically the institution is here to foster, promote the art of science and in civil engineering, and to harness the great sources of power in nature. Now, the great sources of power in nature, which I hope will become clear, is effectively anything that impacts upon our society. And where it says there at the convenience of man, that's probably slightly politically incorrect these days, but effectively what we're saying is civil engineers are here to support society in making it a fairer, safer and better place. And I hope that theme runs throughout. So in terms of civil engineering itself, the slide there I think shows one of the biggest threats to the planet, and that is rapid urbanization. Slightly fictitious place, I'm sure, and probably CPI graphic generated, but fundamentally a lot of the green spaces in the world are very rapidly being built on. I'll give you an example if I may. This is Dubai in 1990, so well within my lifetime. I think at this stage I was at least 25, 30 years old. That building there that I'm going around with the cursor at the time was the tallest building in Dubai. And at the time, of course, Dubai was open desert. So at that time, we could have built anything on that blank sheet of paper. We could have built electric systems, mass transit railway. We could have built a lot of things to try and take carbon out of that particular environment. The reality is, that's what we ended up building. So there's Burj Khalifa, tallest building in the world, and effectively a replica of the United States, slightly more polished. Morning and evening in that space, the city is in gridlock, because what we did is we built on what we knew. We built a mini America in the desert. What we didn't do is learn from our past mistakes. Another example, Hong Kong in 73, some sort of colonial buildings in the foreground there. That was the tallest building in Hong Kong. 35, 40 years later, we're talking about a landscape that looks like that, and significant problems. So in 2015, IC was commissioned by the Hong Kong government to do a report to try and deal with waterborne and airborne disease pollution, because for the first time in a generation, Hong Kong's life expectancy rate was actually decreasing, not increasing. And it was a result of heavy air pollutants and water pollutants across Hong Kong Harbour. IC was obviously engaged as civil engineers in trying to come up with some possible solutions in civil engineering terms in order to deal with those challenges. This slide here is an interesting one. If I was to be there in the room with you all and said, where's the most populous countries on earth, people would quite rightly say China and India. So this region here at the moment is by a country margin the most densely populated places on earth. But this map shows where the population will grow between now and 2050. And as you can see, it's Middle East, it's Africa, and it's South America. Those happen to be some of the driest places on earth. So we're going to have the fastest population growth, the most significant growth on the planet in some of the driest places in the world. And the solutions to deal with those sort of driving pressures will largely come, dare I say it, from the civil engineering community. So the challenge that we face is that if we all lived and used resources as continental Africa might, the world, its almost 8 billion population, could live with one planet's worth of resources. If we lived at the same rate of consumption as Europe, we would require 2 planets worth of resources. And of course, if we lived at the same rate of consumption in the United States, in order for everybody to enjoy that same standard, we would have to have 3 planets worth of resources. Now, clearly, we have 1 planet's worth of resources. And the question, therefore, is, so what? What do we do? Well, some of the challenges that are coming up as a result of that are things like water. I mentioned in my previous career for some 27 years was in engineering. It was actually in military engineering. I spent 27 years in the British Army. And I have to say, most of the conflicts that occurred around the world during the period that I was in the forces were over land or oil or territory or political influence. It's very clear that conflicts in the next 50 years coming up will be over this resource, water. Despite the fact that we live in a closed system, the Earth, and in theory, water shouldn't be able to escape from a closed system. The reality is that only about 1.5 to 2% of the water on the planet is potable water, fresh water for drinking. And it's a very precious resource which needs to be managed. If you think that it uses up to 5,000 gallons of water to make 1 pair of Levi jeans, it gives you some idea of how the challenges that face us. We need to be very, very careful with this commodity, and we need to come up with ever more inventive ways, A, to capture it, B, to keep it, and C, to marshal it for all the world's population, not just those fortunate enough to be rich enough to have access to it. There are obviously more extreme weather events. This is but one slide, but we've all experienced both the hottest summers in the last 10 years and some of the wettest winters and flooding. Venice, a World Heritage Site, or due to be a World Heritage Site, has had the highest repeated tides in history. And the biggest engineering project currently taking place in Italy is the tidal barrage to protect the city of Venice from effectively sinking. Those are the sorts of threats that face us. Our own coastline in the United Kingdom, we lose about 1.3 to 1.5 meters of coastline all the way around the coast of UK every single year. And of course, with more extreme weather events, the erosion is ever greater and the loss of land mass continues to be greater. One solution is something like this. This is in the Channel Islands. It's a coastal protection piece of work. It's not particularly attractive, truth be told, but it is effective. If you look at the sheer scale of concrete used there, imagine what would be required to protect most of the UK coastline. You then start thinking, okay, how can we produce concrete and projects like this with minimum carbon? Because of course, the increased carbon leads in itself to exacerbate climate change, and it becomes a sort of self-fulfilling sad prophecy. So that's one of the solutions. Civil engineers will be involved, but we need to do it cleverly. We need to make sure that we don't exacerbate problems that already exist. So ICE then, as an institution full of civil engineers, has 95,000 members. It's a genuinely international organization. We have members in 126 countries around the world, and the institution covers a whole range of specialist skills and competences, which Eleanor will go into later on. If I was to say to most people, what do you think civil engineers do? It might be a challenge for them to come up with some of the ideas here. So rail and the construction and the infrastructure that goes into building rail, HS2, high-speed, crossrail or otherwise, is civil engineering. The production of potable water, dams and reservoirs, again, is in civil engineering space. Wind turbines, power and energy generation, the Thames barrier, coastal protection, structures and high-rise residential buildings and office buildings, power more generally in the power infrastructure, bridge structures and tunneling. All those skill sets sit within civil engineering. So it's a very, very broad discipline compared to some. And the challenges continue to exist. I would suggest that the London Underground, as well as being the world's oldest underground, is probably still one of the best underground systems in the world. Very rare you'll wait more than 5 to 10 minutes for a train, and at any given time, outside the current sad, the current sort of sad COVID situation, at any given time in London, there's approximately 500,000 people under the ground whizzing around on the tube system. Highly effective, constantly being developed. And the extraordinary thing is, even Crossrail, which at the time was the biggest engineering project in Europe, managed to go from east to west of London, underneath existing infrastructure, quite clearly without any sinkholes or buildings falling down. And that level of extraordinary engineering prowess can be found in members of the Institution of Civil Engineers. I said we were international. This is just to give you a flavour of some of the other projects that ICE members are involved in. £1.4 billion infrastructure project down in New Zealand, led by ICE members. Similarly, in Jakarta, a $1.7 billion rail project, and you can see the ICE members there in the foreground leading on those level of projects. And sadly, the earthquake that took place in New Zealand, the Christchurch reconstruction and the seismic mapping, again, led by members of the Institution of Civil Engineers. So a genuinely global membership doing really good things, productive things for society generally. I started off by talking about the institution's charter. This is the institution's role. And importantly here, it talks about the institution needing to ascertain persons who by proper training and experience are qualified to carry out such civil engineering works. And it's the qualified piece which is important here. The institution qualifies people with professional qualifications rather than academic to carry out works and to look after society. And the dreadful circumstances of Grenfell Tower and that fire, the follow-on research that was done afterwards and the review that was undertaken by Dame Judith Hackett, one of the outcomes from that report is people who work in engineering can't just say they're engineers, they need to be able to prove that they're qualified engineers and they're competent to look after society and the public. It's no longer good enough to say, I'm a civil engineer. or I've done a degree in engineering, you now have to be able to prove professionally that you're competent to operate. And that leads me very briefly into some of the grades that the institution offers. So the grades here are the important ones, and we'll be hearing hopefully later on from an engineering technician. An engineering technician is soon to be a corporate member, but is already a full member of the Institution of Civil Engineers. An incorporated engineer would normally, there are other ways in, but would normally enter the institution through maybe having a bachelor's degree, and a chartered engineer would usually come into the institution holding a Master of Engineering degree. Those are 3 professional qualifications that are registered with the Engineering Council in London and are recognised around the world. So they're portable qualifications. There is every country in the world that you would choose to operate in. If you hold one of those qualifications, they will be recognised by the local government institutions and registration body. We also have a grade before professional qualification, which is a sort of feeder grade. We have about 20,000 student members, and we have about 23,000 graduate members. And those are young people, young professionals who are on their way to a professional qualification. So we have about 60 universities in the UK which teach civil engineering. Eleanor will certainly talk about some of those. Once those young engineers graduate and join employers and companies, that's the start of their professional qualification. So they've achieved their academic, they then start their professional journey towards one of those 3 qualifications above. And if you take aside the student population, ICE has about 65,000 young people who are either on that journey or who have already qualified with ICE. Now I'm going to stop there. I hope to have made up some time. I'm not entirely sure whether the chair wishes me to take questions now or whether you want to continue straight on with Eleanor, but your choice, Abu.
Yes, thanks a lot, Sean. The questions we're going to do at the end in a Q&A section. So if everyone could please, if you have any questions, just put it into the chat section and then I'll read them out later on.
Thank you for the introduction. Now it's after the introduction to the institution, and it's an overarching presentation about what the ICE stands for. My job now is to take you through the technicalities of how one becomes a member. So my name is Elena Rinaldi. I'm a CNG-MICE. So those letters next to my name do symbolize the fact that I am a chartered member of the Institution of Civil Engineers, and that web address there, ic.org.uk/students, is for any one of you who hasn't yet joined as a student member and who is currently studying a civil engineering degree. Do please use it to join us, and I'll tell you a little bit about why. So yes, the ICE is all about realizing your potential. I think Sean's presentation showed how our members do. The professional qualifications are a mark of competence that are very recognizable throughout the world. The ICE has a raft of knowledge resources that are there to support all of our members in a variety of countries, and that support will cover you throughout your career at any stage. I've assumed a little bit in this presentation that you were all student members, but I will, if you are not, I heard that a couple of you might not be, I will make sure that I address the level of membership that it's appropriate to you. So yes, I'm speaking to you today from London, UK, but I don't know exactly where you are all located, but regardless of that, and regardless of where you're from or where you intend to work in, the institution is there for you. I certainly didn't train necessarily where I'm located at the moment, and didn't always work in London, UK, where I'm currently am. I came to London over 10 years ago, or in fact almost 20 now, and I by then had a good curriculum, and I was very proud to lend myself some good job interviews. However, to my surprise at the time, very quickly I was told, well, where are your professional qualifications? We need them to if you want to command that sort of salary. I was bit disappointed, but quickly knocked at the door of the institution, and I was supported through my professional qualification. And it was very obvious to me that when I got the qualifications, I had an increased in status amongst my peers. It was clearer to me within my employer where I was going, so the progress was clearer. I was told in the office that my CV was now going to be used to bid for jobs more clearly, because clients do want to know that people working on such a project are competent. I had recognition, I earned more money, and I had opportunity. Little did I know that I even ended up one day working for the institution, which is what I'm doing now. The qualifications, as you heard, are the engineering technician, incorporated engineer, and chartered engineer. Depending on the level of work that you do, the responsibilities you have, and yes, also a bit on your academic background, but there is extreme flexibility, and you can move from one qualification to another in many more ways than one. So it's always an open door, and the IC is there to assist you. How does one become professionally qualified? You will have an academic base, formal or informal. Again, many of you perhaps I'm addressing today are possibly enrolled in a civil engineering degree, and some even an accredited civil engineering degree, accredited by the ICE, which will make every step of that makes it simpler to quantify that box. So there is a certain requirement, but we have many ways to assist any sort of background, and so don't despair if that isn't your case, or if you're not in a formal academic environment. The institution has 200 years of experience in assessing any background in any field. After you have a academic qualification, we will need to assess your work experience, and some of you might be at the stage when they're yet to develop work experience, acquire work experience. Some of you might be in the process, might be graduate working now. I heard somebody before saying that they're working at the moment. Some of you might be doing those two things in parallel, might be in an apprenticeship degree, or might be in a part-time degree. So it doesn't have to be in sequence, but there is the way one becomes professionally qualified is by having a certain amount of academic knowledge and a certain amount of work experience. And the institution is there to guide you through those and assess those with you. Once you reach the point when the work experience is deemed to be enough, shall we say, then you're welcome to sit a professional review. And the setting is a little bit like that. There is two senior people in the field talking to you about yourself, about your career, in your words, in your way, precisely with the path that you described in your application for professional review. So it's a very holistic approach. And the picture there shows a physical professional review. And now, of course, nowadays they take place online, but that's it's almost made it even more accessible regardless of where you are around the world. It's all underpinned by those acronyms that you always hear when you deal with professional bodies: CPD, continuing professional development. This is the heart of what the institution offers. Has always been made by members, a charitable organization. And members offer their experience to help professionally develop others and themselves. So, assuming that I'm speaking to many of you who are students, do please join us with the free student membership. It's on offer to you, and we actually think that's quite something, as the rest of the membership pays for it, supports it, because students are recognized to be the future of the institution, and all the list there shows all of the benefits that one can have. They go from learning resources to local events to prices, industry updates. There are Quest Travel Awards, and all sorts of support such as mentoring, and many more if you look at the website. So the student student membership is free, and that is the link, and I'll put it in the chat after. I would highly recommend joining us, because you are then on our radar and we can support you and help you. We will talk to you directly. You can, of course, tailor how we talk to you, how often we talk to you by using the portal like we do these days with anything. So start that relationship, be on the radar of the institution. Moving on, if I make the work experience, because I'm conscious that some of you might be graduate member or might have passed the point when they have graduated from an academic institution. And I want to stress that how the institution assesses the work experience is nothing mysterious. In fact, quite the opposite. I like to think is very intuitive, if I may. Those are what we call the 9 attributes, the targets that the institution uses to assess whether or not a civil engineer in any field of work has enough work experience and has enough competence to be professionally qualified. So if you read through that list, which you will find in any literature of the ICE and on the website, the ICE attributes, they are very intuitive, I dare say, and I think that many people would describe a competent engineer using similar concepts. So it's not mysterious, it's very straightforward, and you can fulfill those attributes in all of the field of civil engineering, whether you're a contractor, whether you're a consultant, or you work in any field. I myself had worked as a structural engineer, and you would see members who are in a variety of fields. You saw those photos from Sean describing many fields. So don't let preempting some of your questions, regardless of your field of work, you can fulfill those attributes. And usually it's a pleasure from our ICE reviewers to hear exactly how you think, in your own words and with your description, you think you fulfill them. The ICE system provides you with a mentor. So if you go through that system, we would recommend that you make good use of that. When we talk about support, it's really very tangible. You can ask your company to provide you with a mentor to assess along the way how you're meeting those attributes. Or if you can't find anyone within your company, we can help you find another one outside your company, and it'll be a mentor-supported assessment. For those of you, if there's any of you who have a wealth of experience and might need to do it retrospectively, which was my case, that also is available. As I say, and I stress it again, there is always an open door. There is not one single way to become professionally qualified, and if you think, and there is not standard way either. Now, I thought at this point, I hope that I have the time. I'll show you a little video.
I want to grow as an engineer, I want to grow as a person, and I find that the ICE's route to professional qualification helps me.
It will help you progress with your career, and it will bring you up to a standard which you could be on sort of the world stage of civil engineering.
It is kind of like a stamp on your CV or on you as a person that says that you're skilled in your profession.
Being professionally qualified is an acknowledgement of your competence, your expertise and your skills.
The ICE are very supportive with your progression. They help you with attending lectures and other kind of events that will push you forward.
One of the best things of being a member of the ICE is you become part of this wider civil engineering community, which has the ability to impact the way society works.
When you go to all these lectures and presentations as well and getting everybody else's experience and then all being in the same room and having different ideas and opinions on one subject.
The reason why I became professionally qualified is that it was a differentiator. There are plenty of engineers out there who have experience and do well at doing their job role. But what I wanted when I entered my career was to get that extra bit, the bit that gave me flexibility.
You're recognised by your peers as being someone that's competent and have the credentials to carry out the day-to-day job that you do.
It's well recognised, it's international, it's internationally recognised.
You've demonstrated to the governors of engineering, the ICE, that you are at a very high standard in your profession.
Whenever I cast my mind back to whenever I got the email, which was the initial part of it to say that I had passed my professional review, I was completely over the moon. I did my happy dance and I made a lot of phone calls to tell everybody. It was just that moment where it was just...
To follow up, I want to stress, for example, one of the things we're organizing at the moment, particularly for students, and by the way, if you are hearing me today and you have passed the point of graduation, your membership is then graduate membership, which is what you should aspire to get. And that's the point where you start to pay. Now, there are all sorts of discounts should you be entitled to. And we very much recommend that you become one so that we can start supporting you and assess you. Wednesday lunchtime with the ICE is something I'm particularly proud of. We started it again. It was a concept we started during the lockdown to support students. And we quickly organized for graduate member of the institution. And again, there's a nice concept of whoever is in front of you helps the one or two steps behind. To explain to students or to speak to students about the job that they're in and the experience that they've had in finding a job, particularly interesting in this challenging time. So Wednesday to next week, Friba Hosseini is on, a graduate in tunnel engineering, Jacobs, a graduate from University College London. And what I like about it is that every week there's a different person working for a different employer in a different field. All of the programs soon to be posted on the website, so you can pick and choose. There is an open door for anyone, and you can ask questions. We very much hope that this will help. I'd like to recommend that you follow us on the membership support LinkedIn website. If you are past the point of graduation, we like to think you have a LinkedIn profile by now. If not, we recommend you do and you follow this page. If you are a student, perhaps it's a good idea to do so. Organize your professional social media profile. And you'll find all of the information on that. We obviously, as a member, whether you're a student or a graduate, we will also email you actively with information, depending on what your preferences are on the portal. This is again another testimonial by Susie McAllister, who's done it all. She was a student member, she was an ICE student ambassador, and now is a graduate member of the ICE. So I can't stress enough, apply online for ICE student membership. Now, that is the end of my presentation. So perhaps I'll hand over to or you grab the screen back.
Okay. Thank you very much. I just want to stress again, as an IC and also members of, I get a lot of support just by going onto the website and looking and browsing through all the different methods of support that the ICE sort of provide to graduate engineers and student engineers as well. And just anyone who's just curious to find out more about the institution. So, okay, I'm going to move on now to Mia, and she's going to do a presentation and tell us a little bit more about her journey.
Hi, I'm Mia. I will talk about my personal experience with the ICE since I started my apprenticeship. So I am still working towards my EngTech, but I will touch on that at the end. So if we go back to kind of where it all started, I started my apprenticeship in 2016 in civil engineering. So I did a higher civil engineering apprenticeship. I was working with quite a small consultancy at the time, a structural engineering consultancy. So in the first picture there, you can see it was at one of the apprenticeships awards evening. So it was at the Regional Apprenticeships Awards, and my company had won one of the top 100 small employers. So I had gone along with them, and it was at that event that we were asked if there was anyone in the audience that wanted to be part of the Young Apprentice Ambassador Network. So I got involved with that, and over the course of the next few years, I sat on the board for that organisation, and I spoke at quite a few high-profile events, which was really, really fun and exciting. So I was able to talk about my experience, you know, being a woman in engineering. Yeah, so the second picture you can see, I was speaking at the National Gallery, and it was on International Women's Day. So that was really, really fun and exciting. So through various different channels and people getting in touch with me and stuff, I heard about this Quest scholarship through the ICE. So I was a student member with the ICE while I was doing my apprenticeship, but it was when I applied for my Quest scholarship that I felt that I really got involved the most. So you can find out lots more about the different scholarships available, because there's different scholarships available for different levels. So if you're working towards technician membership, then there's certain scholarships available. I believe if you're an undergraduate, then there's other scholarships available. So it's definitely worth having a look at. So after I found out about it, I thought, oh, this sounds like quite a good opportunity. I'll apply for it, see what happens. So my employer supported me quite a lot through that, and I was awarded the Quest scholarship. So you do an application, sit an interview, show some examples of your work, and then if you're successful, you get a little pot of money. So I got a £1,500, which at the time, being an apprentice, you don't earn that much. So I was like, oh, this is nice. And it was kind of there, yeah, to help me through finishing off my apprenticeship. And then once I finished, I was able to go traveling a little bit. So went on quite a few nice holidays that year, as you can see in the next few pictures, which was great. So obviously that was only possible because I had been able to get this opportunity through the ICE. So that was a big highlight of being involved with them. And it was through my Quest scholarship, because it requires you to do certain things over the course of the year. So you need to attend a few events, which really are great, and they're only going to benefit you. So you attend a few events and then write a little report. So one of the events that I attended, and this was just because I kind of forgot and it was coming up to the deadline that I needed to write my report. And I was like, oh, I need to go to an event. What can I do? So I was at work and I just went on the ICE website, searched their events, and I came across the event that you can see on the bottom left. And it was being run by Nikkei, who is one of the chairs of AFB UK. And it was literally the day before. I said to one of my colleagues, I was like, oh, should we go to this? It looks quite cool. She's like, yeah. So 8 o'clock in the morning the next day, we went down to this breakfast talk. And I wasn't really expecting anything. I was kind of just going to tick a box, if I'm being honest. But I went into the room, and obviously it was the first time so far in 2 years of working in engineering that I had been in a room with Black engineers. And I was shocked in a really good way, because it was the first time I can truly say that I felt like this industry was for me as well, and that I could be successful, and it was the first time I really felt represented, so that was amazing. So yeah, I listened to the talk and asked a few questions and stuff, and then towards the end of the talk, Nikkei said to me, oh, we're doing a mentoring program tomorrow. There's one in Leytonstone, which is around the corner from my house, so if you want to come along, come along. I was like, okay, I'll come along on a Saturday. So I did that, and yeah, so obviously went to a few events with AFB UK. It's the reason why I'm talking today, and that sort of relationship was facilitated again by going to an ICE event, because the ICE does partner with so many fantastic organisations. So everyone really can feel represented and feel that engineering is a career for them, because like we saw before, it's such a broad career, it's such a broad profession to be in, that there really is a place for everyone, and the ICE definitely will help to facilitate that. So I also went to a few after that, after I'd seen that, you know, actually these events are pretty good. I started trying to be a little bit more proactive in the events that I was attending. So you can see there that I went to a couple of events. One was about water, which was touched on before, what the next 50 years would look like, and this one, which was called the Community Response Adaptation to Flooding in Khyberia. And that was really interesting to me, because it was the first one I went to on my own. I was a little bit nervous to go because I didn't really know anyone. I felt like it might be a little bit awkward to, you know, network and stuff, but I pushed myself to go. And it was a fantastic event, because it really opened my eyes a little bit more to see how broad engineering is, civil engineering is, and also to see what my career might look like in the future. Because obviously finding out about all these different avenues, I was like, that's really interesting to me. Maybe in the future, once I finish my apprenticeship, or when I'm looking to go back into education, I might consider that. So that's another really good thing, you know, going to events that the ICE hold will open to you. The networking opportunities are fantastic, and also just the ability to sort of broaden your horizons a little bit and see what might be the right fit for you. So yeah, that was great. And then I was also able to get involved in some of the STEM events that the ICE was holding. So the Big Bang London was held at Newham College, which I sort of grew up in and around Newham. So it was a privilege to be able to give back to the community that helped me through my education. And yeah, to go to Newham College and be part of that event was really good. So yeah, I think that was last year. And then obviously this year we had COVID. So that's been fun for everyone, I'm sure. But the ICE helped everyone to get a little bit, take it a little bit easier, because they did a yoga and civil engineering event at the beginning of lockdown in April. So that was interesting. I definitely haven't done Zoom yoga since. It was one of the most awkward things I've done, but it was a great experience, because yoga and civil engineering, you never think that yoga and civil engineering are linked in anyway. But it was great because, you know, there was people from lots of different companies that had got involved, and obviously because the ICE is such a recognised institution, lots of people from my own workplace shared the link, and we all went. So it was just a nice little fun thing. It wasn't all serious. It wasn't all about careers and prospects and all of that. There are some things that are quite, you know, relaxed and stuff as well. So yeah, I'm working towards my EngTech at the moment. I finished my apprenticeship a couple of years ago, and honestly, I hadn't applied for my EngTech before this point, because in my head it felt difficult, but actually it's not difficult. And for whatever level that you're going for, the ICE offers amazing support. So yesterday I went to the technicians workshop for the EngTech, and it was a 2-hour workshop where some of the membership people at ICE literally sat with like a very small group of people, and they said, this is what you need to do, and they ran through the application process with us. And then there'll be 2 more sessions coming up in November and December, where they go through other parts of how to do that. So whether you're going for EngTech, iEng or CEng, there is a wealth of support out there, and you definitely shouldn't be scared to apply because you think it's too difficult, because it's not. And once you have the support to really break it down and all the steps that you need to do, it makes it feel much more achievable. So that is my next step with the ICE, and I'm sure there will be much more to come after that. So yeah, that's it from me.
Thank you very much, Mia, for that. I think that just shows at all different levels, be it before you enter the world of work as a what's the word? As a as an undergraduate or a person in school, or just before you started the world of work or in the world of work, there is support provided by the ICE in different formats, be it formal and informal. There's also different ways in order to create some sort of ancillary income as well, by some of the events that some of the grant schemes and some of the awards that they do also organize as well. I just want to say as well that Eleanor has provided a number of links as well into the training and the different schemes and events that have got that ICE have organized and prepared, and yeah, so thank you very much, panelists, for giving us a great sort of summary of some of the things in which the ICE do. Are there any other questions that anyone wants to ask our panelists? This is an opportunity to do it. We've got probably about half an hour now to do it. I don't think we might need all of that time, but we've got half an hour to answer any questions now, so feel free.
Can I ask a question? Is there anyone who is past the point of graduation that is listening in today? I know of one, we talked before, I think it was, I know, Mia, of course. No, so they're all student members. I was just conscious that I might not have, I wanted to double check I provided all of the necessary information. And perhaps I can add that there were questions about training and knowledge resources. If you are a member at any point, you will be actively emailed by ICE with a summary of whatever opportunities there are for training and for events, which you can control using the portal, My ICE, just like any portal these days. So yes, I provided all of those links for you, but it's better than that. You will be emailed, should you wish to, about them all. And I can stress that there was something about what opportunities are there, what should one look for. That Wednesday session that we now organize, which is quite a bite size, so it's quite quick, will provide every week with a different perspective and a different opportunity that any one of our members has taken.
But would you mind if I just said a few words on the back of Mia's talk, because she said something which I thought was quite telling, and that was about initially feeling welcome until she walked into an event and she suddenly realized, there's lots of other BAME engineers working in the profession and within ICE in particular. And I know it's rich coming from me, middle-aged, white guy, grey hair, and all the rest of it. But I think it's really important from an institution's perspective, just to let the people who are listening to this evening's discussion realise that there's an enormous amount of work being put in, and it does require conscious effort and application. It doesn't just happen. So, as an institution, back in 2015. We concentrate on 3 areas. We concentrate on trying to improve the gender split, the gender balance, because females are underrepresented. Ethnicity, to try and drive up those BAME numbers and give life opportunities for anybody who's interested in engineering. And we also focus on those people who maybe have other specific learning difficulties, and trying to make it as inclusive as possible. If you go back to 2015, ICE, in terms of females employed in civil engineering, 6.1% of civil engineers in UK were female. And between 2015 and 2019, we've increased that to 16.1%. Now, I won't bombard you with statistics. All I would say is civil engineering now boasts more females than any other engineering discipline, which I think is very credible. In terms of our BAME membership in UK, and I'm going to talk about under 30s, because I think there is a historic problem we have in terms of BAME engineers within the profession, but under 30s, we're now 23% BAME membership. That's in UK. If we went outside UK and included our global membership, which is cheating slightly, IC would be able to say 42% of its members are from the BAME community, which is just the UK, the 23%. That's double the Office of National Statistics figure for the BAME population in the UK. So I'm really proud to say that within civil engineering, the BAME community is much more represented, is overrepresented against the national background in terms of opportunity. And I think that's because engineers coming into the profession act as their own advertisements. I mean, Mia did a beautiful presentation there, genuinely inspiring for people there to say, actually, there are great opportunities. And a lot of the work that Eleanor's doing at the moment is focused on pairing up schools which surround our partnership universities. So we have 60 universities in UK which provide civil engineers. There are 25 that we call partnership universities, academic partners. And a lot of those universities, and I'm thinking of the regional ones like University of East London, London South Bank University, Coventry University, a lot of those students come from the local community. So Eleanor and the universities are engaged in making sure that the schools and the sixth forms are providing engineers into those universities and colleges of further education. And a lot of those are coming from the BAME community. So we are way off doing as well as we could be doing, but I just want to sort of reassure people that as an institution, we put ED&I genuinely at the forefront. And I think our statistics, thankfully, are beginning to represent that. Thank you.
Can I just add on to that, Sean? I think that's actually quite an important statistic, because one of the things that we particularly, and then coming off Mia's talk, we specifically talk about is the fact that, yes, less than 1% of engineers are in Russell Group universities, but actually there's a significant representation of engineers that are from a BAME background within the actual engineering body. So 32% of engineers are out there pursuing this as a subject, but just less than 1% actually make it into Russell Group University. So it's actually quite great to hear that sort of focus on not taking the traditional route, which a lot of companies tend to focus on just the Russell Group and stuff. And that is something we really do a lot of work on in AFBE, to focus, especially around transition. The very actual ethos of transition has been based around being able to support other students being prepared and having that equal chance of exposure and equal chance to be ready for a career in engineering.
Mara, I hadn't seen your name there until you suddenly appeared, which is fantastic to hear you again. We had a great chat in London, and a lot of the programs we were talking about engaging with then are actually up and running. So nice to hear you again. And I agree. I think our focus on the academic partnership, when we started, we ensured that there are Russell groups. I mean, Imperial College is one of our academic partners. We also have regional universities, which are terribly important to us. And the latest campaign that we're engaging with, which is the 16 to 18 focus, to make sure those youngsters who are studying the right subjects at A-level or higher in Scotland, who then wish to apply for civil engineering, that we forged the link between the local schools, academies and technical colleges into those local universities. And it's interesting because in terms of stats, you're quite right. Only 1% of the engineers, BAME engineers in Russell Group universities, and yet young black men, young black students now at school, at the 16 to 18 space, are outperforming all other ethnic demographics. They're outperforming, the least well-performing students these days are actually white boys. So the correlation between black students outperforming white students at A-level, but then not going to Russell Group universities, is an interesting connection. And it could be because they would prefer to go to local universities near their local communities, or there could be something other. And I think we had that conversation in London about the other, whether there is some form of conscious or unbiased conscious in that space. But we do focus on non-Russell Group. The vast majority of our universities that we have an academic partnership with are actually non-Russell Group. So thanks, Mara.
Thank you very much for that, Sean. We've got a few questions in the chat. There's one from Norris. He asked, I think this is probably for Mia, what was one of the things that drew you to ICE, and what have you gained by being a member?
That's actually quite an interesting question. So I was doing my apprenticeship in a structural engineering company. So my options were become a member of the iStructE or become a member of the ICE. And it was sort of the done thing in my company to favour the iStructE over the ICE. So I was getting pushed to do my Eng Tech and stuff with the iStructE. And honestly, it was after I had just gone on the ICE website and compared it to the iStructE website, and I had a feeling of being welcomed, like I said before, by the ICE website over the iStructE. It felt to me slightly less elitist and a little bit more inclusive, a little bit warmer. And when I looked through the opportunities they had for students and anyone that kind of wanted to put themselves out there and get involved, it was much easier to get yourself involved with the ICE for me than with the iStructE, and even, you know, like the scholarship opportunity that I got from the ICE that wasn't really there with the iStructE. Support for apprentices and those kind of things. It was really, yeah, the ICE kind of stood out to me because it seemed to be focusing more on creating an environment for collaboration with its members, and I really like that. So yeah, that's the reason why I chose the ICE.
Thank you. Got another question from Fatima. Does ICE help you find an industrial mentor, and how would you go about applying for it?
Shall I take that? I put there first and foremost an email, membership support email, because when you say mentor, it depends a little bit on what one is looking for. The answer is yes, certainly. We have a match and mentor system on the website, which it was set up to help professionals. But if by mentor you mean somebody for your IPD, for your professional development, we can certainly help you identify one. So email us, because everybody has different needs, different geography. So it's best that we speak personally. So, well, very welcome to do that.
Eleanor, can I just check with Fatima? Does she mean an industrial mentor to help her professional development, or does she mean an industrial placement? Is Fatima able to either?
Oh, sorry. I meant industrial mentor, because our university has a scheme. I think they did it last year, and they set you up with a mentor. I was thinking.
Fatima, this is Eleanor Rinaldi's own scheme. Eleanor, it's the summer.
Which university is that, Fatima?
Cardiff University.
Yes, they have a scheme. Yes, we're part of it, and so they will provide you with what we do with them is that we email our mentors and identify who can help. So you go through them. We're working with them in finding that, and anything else, email us. Then there will be an industrial mentor, which is associated with placements, isn't it?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much for that, Eleanor. There's another question from Mariam. Is there any unconscious bias training for ICE chartership reviewers?
Can I take this one, Eleanor? It's not just the ICE reviewers. The answer is yes, there is. We have 900 reviewers. Every new reviewer, before they conduct review or even sit in as an assistant reviewer, has to undergo unconscious bias training. And once qualified as a reviewer, there's refresher training on a biennial basis. So every other year, they formally have to take the reviewer training and pass the test in it. So that is absolutely correct. It's not. It covers a whole raft of things: specific learning difficulties, neurodiversity, dyslexia, dyspraxia, autistic spectrum condition. I'm trying to think of other ones. Hearing impaired. There's a whole raft of sort of protected characteristics that the reviewers are trained in and assessed in on a biennial basis. So the answer in short is yes.
Thank you very much for that, Sean. If there's any more questions, we've still got about 15 minutes.
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Go for it, Allegra.
Hi. First, thank you. Thank you, Harry, Selena, and Maya for this great presentation. Just wanted to ask, is there any support that's been offered to people who come into the industry through apprenticeship, not universities? And if yes, where for a student, they go through their university. For those who want to go into industrial apprenticeship, where do they go from?
Allegra, if you don't mind, Eleanor, I'll take this one as well. Only in as much as we, 2 years ago, we managed to secure funding for an apprenticeship manager, Richard Davis. So for every apprenticeship course in civil engineering run in UK, the output at the end is that the individual is assessed by somebody called an endpoint assessor, and that individual, that body, then decides whether they've passed the apprenticeship, and if they've passed the apprenticeship, whether they would also like to be considered for a professional qualification. But the two things are subtly different. An individual can pass an apprenticeship but not join a professional body. We are the endpoint assessor for all civil engineering apprenticeships in UK. So as a result of that, Richard Davis is able, as the endpoint assessor, knowing where all the students are coming from, we engage with 3 stakeholders, all the colleges that provide civil engineering apprenticeships. Every civil engineering apprentice that's actually on a course is contacted by one of our team, and the college that delivers those apprenticeships and training. So those 3 stakeholders are engaged with ICE. So every student, apprenticeship student on a course in any college or any provider will have been contacted by one of our membership development officers under the auspices of the apprenticeship program. So in answer to your question, there is absolutely support for all apprenticeships, and at the end of their apprenticeship, if they're doing civil engineering, it will be an ICE endpoint assessor that will be in front of them, giving them advice on the next steps.
Great, thank you.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Thanks.
I've got a quick question for Sean or Elena. So going back to like ED&I stuff and talking about the universities that the non-Russell Group universities that you guys support, I guess that your support is more obviously for the students, but company-wise, so employer-wise, where companies are looking more at ED&I, I'm working with my company on that quite a bit at the moment, and one of the areas that I noticed was, yeah, you can't, if there's not that many BAME students in a Russell Group university, then you have a smaller pool to choose from anyway. So I said to them, you know, the reason might be that a lot of fantastic engineers are not at Russell Group universities because, you know, they've stayed closer to home, they felt they need to support their families, lots of different reasons. So do you offer any support for employers when it comes to, because I know that employers can get into a bit of a routine of selecting students from specific universities, and if those universities aren't very diverse, then they have an issue. So do you offer any support to employers when it comes to hiring from non-Russell Group universities?
I'm going to jump in, if I may, before handing over to Eleanor. The answer is that we have, I mentioned the academic partnerships, Mia, where we have 25 academic partnership universities out of the 60, and there's a spread. On the other side of that sort of balance, if you like, we have 10 corporate partners. So the 10 biggest engineering employers in UK, and they're not British companies, they can be AECOM, they can be other companies, but the biggest employers are corporate partners. And the organisation which basically interfaces between the academic partnership, which Eleanor runs, and the corporate partnership is the same organisation. It's one and the same. So in answer to your question, we provide toolkits for the employers. If you look at the apprenticeship piece, we with Centre and Wise introduced the apprenticeship toolkit for employers. And we also provide modules, webinars, and have formal engagements with those employers. There's a body called the Civil Engineering Employers Training Group, CETG, which we are the host for, that meets on our premises, if you like. It's now virtual, but we're the secretariat for it. And that is all the biggest employers in the UK. There's 38 of them, I think, represented. So in terms of what we do in the ED&I space, all of that is passed on to the employers. I think it's worth recognizing the fact that if you work for a big company like Jacobs or AECOM, their ED&I department is 20 or 30 people. ICE has 3 people involved in ED&I, myself, a chap called Andrew Stanley, and we have a panel of volunteers called the FIR panel who effectively listen, suggest things, and then we sort of take things forward. So a lot of the employers have much more resource and are, dare I say it, probably more advanced than us in terms of being able to deliver effect for employers. But in terms of specifically the liaison between an employer and a university to make sure that BAME engineers get those opportunities, I think the fact that our membership for, so in terms of that, I'm going to look at some stats if I may. So in terms of our qualified membership, it's about 2/3 white and 1/3 BAME. And that obviously includes 6,500 Hong Kong Chinese, because we have a very big representation in Hong Kong. My point being that we are about 70-30 in terms of white versus BAME membership. And I think that reflects the fact that we do encourage employers to take on BAME engineers because they are, like I said, over twice as well represented as the national background. So I think the work we do with employers does encourage them to take engineers on merit. And the point you make is a very valid one. You could have somebody who, the A-level grades for black engineers, black students at school rather, so I'll rephrase, black students at school, the A-level grades are better than their white counterparts. They choose not to go to Russell Group universities. The potential those engineers have, those students have, is as good as anybody in a Russell Group. And that correlation is also being made. So when we do the Quest scholarships and we do the engagement with both employers and with suppliers, the colleges, the recognition that BAME engineers in non-Russell Group universities are credible and add significant value has been recognised. Otherwise, our qualified membership wouldn't be roughly 2/3, 1/3. I hope that helps me.
Yeah. I've got a question for Elena. I just wanted to ask, so as somebody who's gone through the whole process, I started off as a student member and gone right up until now being a chartered member. One thing I did notice when I was sitting my professional review was that there is quite a big disparity between your graduate members who kind of are in a position where you haven't maybe made a decision to go for a professional review yet, and the people who are actually ready and able to actually sit the review. So I know a lot of people who are graduate members, but very few people who kind of get to that point where they want to now sit their professional review. Do you guys recognize that, and what you're doing to kind of enable people or push people to kind of go for more professional review, become chartered or become professionally qualified?
Well, I think that the difference that you were describing between those who are supported, actively supported to progress, and those who aren't. So the institution has, I don't know when you did it, but as now, there used to be 2 ways to progress to professional qualification and become ready, if I understand your question correctly. Either through a training scheme or doing it retrospectively. A third way has been introduced, which is the mentor supported training, which implies that if you are not within a company that has a structured training scheme, there used to be quite a difference between those who were offered a structured training scheme because the company ran one, and those who didn't, which was my situation. But a third way has been introduced, so you're very, very welcome to continue as you are, but elect an ICE mentor who may sit within your company or may not, to help you and assist you that way. We also have more ways to pick up, I suppose, on those who are not progressing. As graduate, who we see on our records as graduate members who are not progressing, and that also gets done through the employers, all our colleagues visiting employers and picking up on anybody that isn't seen to be moving along, hasn't started their active training records, and so on. So. Okay. I hope that answers the question. I don't know if Sean might want to add to it.
I'm just going to very briefly, Abby's question is a very good one. I was just typing a response. We do have a whole raft of people who have stalled. So I mentioned 23,000 graduates. It's worth recognizing the fact that the term graduate in ICE does not mean what it means outside in the real world. because a graduate normally would be somebody who's graduated from university with a degree. Graduate for us can be somebody with a national certificate or A-level. So there's a difference there. So our 23,000 graduate members, the average age is 35 years old. And we have some 10,000 graduate members who have been members for more than 12 years. So these are the people you're talking about who have stalled and they're not qualifying. Of those, there's about 5,500 who are eligible, are ready, who have finished some form of training agreement, and for whatever reason have either taken it and failed the review and therefore become disinterested, or haven't got over the hurdle of actually taking it. And these are the people that Ellen is talking about. We have two options. One is the membership development teams that Eleanor mentioned proactively go out and contact these individuals saying, come on, with X and Y, you can get over the finish line here, we can get you professionally qualified. And for those who maybe have left a training scheme some years ago or never did one in the first place but have got experience, we have a program called Experienced Engineers who haven't been on a training scheme, but we go in and say, you've got all the experience, let's cross-map it against the attributes and get you to a professional review. And we've qualified 1,500 experienced engineers in the last 3.5 years. The people you're talking about who, for whatever reason, haven't gone forward for a professional review. But it's a genuine challenge, and it is one we're grappling with. So, you know, there is light there.
Yeah, I'd like to think that, from my own opinion, people who are supported by companies which have sort of a recognized program generally are able to either not have to do it retrospectively and more likely do it at a much more like an earlier point than people who have to go back and do it retrospectively. So I think like definitely the program and the method that you guys have sort of introduced to try and get people who have kind of sort of stalled, as you'd say, professionally qualified is really good. I've got one probably final question that Nick has asked. I'll just read it. There is a perception that it is more difficult to get registered, so IEng, CEng, and anything in between is more difficult than other institutions. Is that true?
Yes. Yeah, I'm afraid it is. And I don't say that with any great pride, to be honest. ICE, if I was being honest with you, and I have to be, has the second lowest pass rate of professional review. Me as other potential competitor, the iStructE is the one that's below us. So the iStructE has the lowest pass rate of professional review, and we're next, but it's still 75%. I talked about stripping out some of the stuff in terms of streamlining. ICE, there's a standard that's required by the Engineering Council for professional qualification. ICE does tend to make slightly more demands. So if I was on a recruiting drive here, I can see Eleanor now cursing. If I was on a recruiting drive, I'd be saying, no, it's the same as everywhere else. It isn't. The truth is, it is slightly more difficult to get chartered with ICE than it is with other institutions. That is true. What I would say is ICE has its own qualification. It's an accrediting body in its own right, and that accrediting level is recognized around the world. So there are other institutions, and I'll mention them because they are direct competitors who are perfectly good quality and they're focused. CIHT, I showed on my slide, transport, trains, rail, and transport. CIHT is a chartered institute of highway and transport. Their pass rate is higher than our pass rate because they make less demands on those people coming forward for professional review. Now, I'm not knocking them for it. Their standard is absolutely recognized. It's an Engineering Council qualification, the same as ours is, but maybe the journey to get that qualification is an easier journey. And there will be people listening to this to think, that's the one for me, you know, least effort, maximum reward. But all I would say is if two people going for a job in transport, one comes with an IC chartership or incorporated or engineering technician, and another one with CIHT, there is at least a recognition that the journey is possibly being slightly more challenging for the person that's come through the IC route. So that's a really insightful question, and one which isn't a great one to have to answer, to say it's slightly more difficult to qualify with us than others, but that is the truth. Sorry, Eleanor.
No, I would only say that all the more appreciate, what can I say? When I became professionally qualified, I commanded a lot of respect in my office, I'd say, and I just wanted to add that to that.
Great. Thank you very much, Sean, Anna, and Mia. I think we've got 2 minutes left. know if there's anything anyone wanted to ask finally, but if not, just want to thank all of our panelists today and all of the people who have joined in for this talk. It's amazing now that we've got IC as part of our commercial corporate members, sorry. And it's really, really good to see this connection between an organization like ours, which sort of promote STEM within the Black and minority ethnic group, and the efforts that IC are making to sort of make it something that's very much achievable and attainable. Just some final words. We've the AFB, please join and follow on all of our social platforms. It's AFB UK on Instagram, on Twitter, and on LinkedIn. And I'd say we have more events coming up soon. If you just go onto our website, you'll see all the events that we've got scheduled over the coming months, and you'll find all those details on our website. But thank you very much again, everyone, for sparing some time to come and join us today. Thank you again for our panelists, and yeah, hope you guys all have enjoyed it and had a good evening.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
You all, thank you.